Hello, team. How are we doing? Welcome back. Welcome back to Exploring with Mansi, a podcast where we explore themes that are going on in my life or in my mind, and we just talk about it and see what comes up, basically. I love how I have like 20 different ideas for what I want to talk on this podcast, and I have them written in my notes pad on my iPhone, like every single normal human being, you know. I'm like, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that, I want to talk about that, and I have like this this massive list of things I want to talk about because they were on my mind. But somehow I wait for myself to be sleep deprived, which is actually a rare occurrence, trust me. I am so anal on like sleeping my 8 hours because everyone knows sleeping is the one thing you can do for yourself. It's really good for your happiness. It's really good for your immune system. It is good for you for so many reasons. And there's so many studies that shows that, well, let's be honest, sleep put us in, what is the word? In an evolutionary disadvantage place. Okay, Apple Watch. I know you're low battery, calm down. But basically, yes, sleeping puts you at an evolutionary disadvantage. Like, imagine our ancestors in Africa. They have to go to sleep, and we sleep for about like 1/3-ish of the day. And in that time, well, you could be attacked by, I don't know, a leopard climbing onto the tree where you're sleeping, or things along those lines. So there's a very good reason why you need sleep, and this is why. To be fair, I'm gonna attach 6 episodes of the Andrew Huberman podcast, which talks about sleep and how important it is and what is important about sleep. I'm also going to attach one more episode of, is it the Happiness Lab? Yes, the Happiness Lab, which talks about how sleep is the one thing you can do to make yourself happy. But yeah, that was a tangent, sorry guys. But basically, sleep is so important, and I'm super anal about sleep. There's 2 more things I'm super anal about, but could be a topic for another episode, which is fueling myself, so eating, making sure I'm eating well, and there's a lot of things that come into account, and movement, because movement is so important, and that's going to be a different topic on the podcast. This is not the theme of today. But going back to, I am so anal about sleep, and I track my sleep. I plan my sleep. I plan 9 hours in bed so that I can get my 8 hours of sleep. And for some reason, I do still find myself sleep deprived. But at least yesterday I made the choice. I was hanging out with my friend Genevieve, who, if you're listening, I love you. And we were just hanging out, and every time we hang out, like, I don't see the time go by, and next thing I knew, it was like 11:30 p.m., which is like, I'm fast asleep at that point. I am always fast asleep at that point. I came back home at like midnight, showered, and then went to sleep at like midnight 15, and I had a spinning class in this morning. So yeah, my QQRT, this is how you measure sleep. So quality, quantity, regularity, and timing. Screaming this morning, but you know what, we move. I had such a good start of my day. I am really happy. My cup is really full. You could not tell I am sleep deprived. And my brain cells are like, Pedro. But yes, I said 500 things just to say that I love recording episodes. I seem to only record episodes for this podcast when I am sleep deprived. But yes, on to our topic today. What are we talking about? We are talking about cleaning my hard drive. Just bear with me, guys. Just bear with me. So I have a hard drive that my dad bought when I forgot how old I was, but I was in high school. I probably was like somewhere between like 10 to like 15, 16. I think like somewhere there. I would say like, yeah, that I know it's a 5-year range, guys, but my dad bought me a hard drive. And what I would do is I would save a lot of my stuff onto the hard drive, a lot of the stuff that I thought was important. And most importantly, all of my pictures are saved on this hard drive. So let me open my hard drive and go into pictures. So I have tracked pictures from 2013 till, well, right now. It is all in a file. Yeah, I basically have all the pictures that I've been taking since 2013 till 2024, which is the year we are at right now. To be fair, technically a lie. I also have pictures of myself in like Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, which is so first year of high school, second year of high school, third year of high school, don't even know. So somewhere along those lines, I have so many pictures of myself. And I was going through this phase recently where I was like, okay, you know what? It's time to cleanse. There's so many things I want to let go. And this is, how many days have I journaled successfully now? I have journaled for about 100 days. To be fair, less than 100 days. I would say maybe 70 days, but I just rounded it up to 100 days. And as I was journaling, I realized that there was a lot of themes, and I was like, you know what? When I go through like cleaning my hard drive, let me just see if there's any themes and is there anything I can learn about myself and things along those lines. So, you know, just like some introspection here and there. And as I started, 2024 was quite painful to go through, and I have not cleaned my hard drive. So I have not cleaned my phone onto my hard drive in 2024 because I had a bit of a tough year. And I'm not going to get emotional. And to be completely honest, I have found it difficult to be happy this year, like this past 6 months. And I realized I was so focused on like what was going wrong in my life. Actually, I'm going to break that down in a minute, but I was so focused on like how unhappy I was that I didn't stop and appreciate the little things. And I was just like, I don't know, I've been in this like head state, which now if someone was going through that and I was watching that, I'd be like, girl, what's up? Like, get a grip. But I think like I've just like shut myself a little bit about life. I'm like, you know, I'm going through like such a transformative phase of my life, and I've cocooned myself basically and a little bit isolated myself as I'm like transforming, if that makes any sense. And that is something I've realized as I was like looking at the meager folder that was 2024. Yeah, it was a little bit painful to go through 2024. And it made me start thinking about a lot of stuff, but the topic of this podcast is not 2024. And as I went through 2023, I also want to open my journal so that I can go through this with you guys and walk you through like everything that I've learned. Let's go through all entries. Also, if you have any questions, I journal on an app called Day One. I have the premium version. I think it's one of the best things, but again, not the topic of this podcast. And I was going through journaling because as I journal, I also put like pictures. I also put pictures in my journal entries, and like you have this calendar view where you can see like days where you've put pictures on there. And I realized if I'm not in like, if my mood, like my overall mood is not like very happy, I tend to like not focus on the good things that are going on around me because my mood is already like it gives me broody teenager vibes. That's like angsty and stuff. So that was one thing I found out. I was scrolling through 2024. But then as I went through, I was looking back to a section that had so many pictures. That was February 2024. And I was looking back to Mauritius with my family. Okay, disclaimer, I might cry through this podcast. But I was looking at Christmas with my family and I got like really emotional. Not Christmas. I was there in February. What am I talking about? I was looking through my time with my family in Mauritius, and it made me super emotional because looking back at those pictures made me realize like how loved I felt, and like how blessed I am to like have such a supportive family. Yeah, I'm already cracking. I am cracking. But it was really emotional to go through February 2024. And like so many things happened while I was home, good and bad. But my family was super supportive about me running Hackney Hub. That is one of the core things I remembered. And like they would go out of their way to show their support. And it was funny because I look back to 2024. I was like, oh my God, it's been tougher to feel happy this year. But when I look at this, I get so emotional and I get so overwhelmed because like I'm overwhelmed with gratitude, which is absolutely like interesting. It's really interesting for me, at least. And then I went through January and I was looking through December, which were a bit darker months. I had a lot of stuff like going on in my personal life that I'm not necessarily going to go into. Then I started looking at 2023, and this is where I had like a bit of a mindset shift. February 2022 to February 2023 to February 2024 has been one of the toughest years that I have personally experienced. A lot of things happened. I had a falling out with a parent that I was the closest to. There was like rounds of firing in my company, and I was scared for my job. Visa laws changed, and I was like, am I going to get deported? I had a lot of issues with my previous flatmate at home. There's a list. I had injuries, I had health issues. It was a tough year to navigate, because the thing is, if you have like one massive thing going on in your life, I find it much easier to deal with, because you're like, okay, there's this thing going on, so I know this is going to affect me this way, this is what I can do, and this is what, like, the rest of it is out of my control. But when you have like different aspects of your life coming like in different like directions, like it's like being fired with guns from all fronts. So it was really hard to navigate. And when I look back to that period, I'm like, I'm surprised like there were moments of respite. Yeah. But now that I was looking through the picture and I looked at November was such a joyful month. And I think one of the reasons it was so joyful was because of the relationship I was in, and it was such a healthy, happy relationship at that point in time. And there's so much time I spent with my friend Edward. We did our first race together, and it was absolutely one of the most special things that we did. And I look back to October, and so many really good things happened last year in October. Gave me a lot of, I don't know, it gave me like this burst of joy. This is getting super personal. But as I was going through, like I kept going through 2023, I was looking through September, August, July, June, May, April, March, and we kept going, and we were going and going and going. And I was like, when I look back at those months, I just remember being unhappy, but there were so many moments of like quiet joy, like many more moments than I was expecting. And as I was cleaning the pictures, I'm like, the way I was cleaning was, when I look back to this, to the memory associated to this picture, does this make me happy? Is this something that I want, like, is this a memory I want to hold for the rest of my life, to the grave kind of mindset? And the more I was looking, I was like, there's so many things that gave me like such quiet joy, and that maybe in the moment I didn't necessarily realize. And I don't know, it gave me like a slap to my face, because I feel like I've been so whiny. I've been so whiny. Let's be honest with each other, guys. I've been so whiny. And I was like, yeah, life has been tough. It's been one of the toughest years of my life. And here I was, like, experiencing such moments of quiet joy. And it was, like, magical. I went on, like, a last-minute... Whoopsies. I went on a last-minute trip to Kenya. I went on a last-minute trip to Poland. My summer was incredible. I went on a last-minute trip to Italy. Like, yeah, no, it was actually a pretty, like, incredible year that I completely forgot about. And I was like, okay. And then I started looking back to the year that was before, because there was a lot of tough stuff that happened. Because when I look back, these are the things that I remembered. I was really, really unhappy the year I was doing my master's. And I think that comes with respect to the topic of failure, which is something I probably will touch on in the next few episodes. But I actually felt like a failure. And I felt like I was nowhere close to what I was working towards, which was actually like so ridiculous, because I'll talk about it in a second. But I was very, very, very unhappy. I did not want to do that master's, to the extent that when I went home during Christmas break, while I was doing my master's, my grandma sat me down on the first day, and she literally was like, you know, Mansi, if you want to drop out, we support you. We can tell how unhappy you are. And like, it's completely fine. We'll figure it out. Like, we'll figure it out as a family. Not you'll figure it out, but we'll figure it out. So yeah, like, really was not living my best life while doing my master's. But when I was looking back to the year, like, a lot of the stuff that happened in that year, I realized why the universe was like, you know what, Mansi, we know that your master plan was, you know, do a bachelor's at UCL, get that grad scheme at the company that I currently work for, because it was my dream to work for them. And then, you know, like, it'll help you with your visa, you can stay in the UK, etc., etc. And when I graduated in COVID, and it was like nothing I imagined, and I couldn't get a job, and I ended up doing a master's. I was like, I failed. I set myself to do, my goal was to do this and this and this, and I couldn't, and I failed. And one of the things that made me feel better about that was an interview of Sebastian Vettel, where, if in case you don't know any F1, he moved to Ferrari because he wanted to emulate his hero, Michael Schumacher, who broke so many records, the ultimate F1 GOAT, and basically went to Ferrari and made the team like great again, and they won so many records, and this is where Michael Schumacher broke his like record and became the GOAT, and that was what Sebastian Vettel wanted to do. And he was like, okay, you know what, I came to Ferrari and I wanted to win the world championship. This is the goal I set, and I failed, and that's completely fine. That's completely fine. It doesn't diminish everything I have accomplished until then. Or at least that's what I remember. Maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, but I remember watching that interview, and that gave me so much peace inside. And yeah, and it also reminded me of like how much I've been attached to Sebastian Vettel, and I feel like my life's journey has been attached to his life's journey. And every time I was going through a tough time, I feel like he was also going through like something very similar, and I would look at him, and I would look at how he was managing it, and it would give me strength and inspiration on how to like keep plowing. But this is like the year I remember my master's by, and then like here I am, as I was looking back to like 2021 going on 2022, girl was living her best life. Like, girl was living her best life. No understatement here. The summer after my master's, to be fair, even before that, absolutely banging. Summer before my master's, living the life. I traveled to like, I think like between, I'm just going to give an average number because I don't want to be counting, and everyone watching how I can't count, in the podcast. But basically, I think like within the summer, I went to like about 8-ish countries, some with my dad, some with my best friends, and I had like the summer of dreams planned. It was like literally the best summer of my life, and like it's hilarious that I completely forgot about it. Not that I completely forgot, but it was erased by the fact of, I was so sad because I was doing this master's I didn't want to do. Like, first year problems, girly, first year problems. And here I was looking back being like, oh my god, this summer was the most perfect summer I've ever had. To be fair, not the most perfect summer I've ever had. There was a lot of other things going a bit haywire, but it was a really good summer, objectively. And I was spending, like, I loved the research group I was with, my friends. I was really close to a girl named Juju, and it was like the best life. My friend Himnish visited me twice. It was such a good summer. And then the before summer is when I met my ex-boyfriend. We didn't start dating then, but like, I was in such a different place romantically back then, and as I was looking at the pictures, I remembered that. I was like, oh my god, and here I was meeting one of the people that I thought was the love of my, like, I met a person who I thought could potentially be the love of my life with hindsight. And I, like, when I look back to that summer, things started to, like, make not so much sense, but I felt like I was in, what is the movie called? Not Introspection, but it was Inception. I felt like I was in Inception, because the more I was, like, zooming out, instead of falling apart, it felt like my life was falling into place. And just going through that period of my masters where the only thing I remember was, like, unhappiness. I was like, mate, I had, like, the best time. I actually did have the best time. Yeah. Actually, yeah. And I remember there was a point in February was I was journaling. I feel like I haven't found my community. I feel very alone right now. Not alone. I feel very, like, lonely right now. And literally, March onwards, my life pivoted. My life pivoted. So it's really interesting to see that, oh, I said that intention a month ago, and this is what happened. And I kept going through, and I was, like, I had a really good time while doing my masters, living my best life. And then as I was going through the previous summer, I was just looking back even more through, like, my time at uni. I was going through 2021. 2021 was, like, such a good year. It was so good. I loved my flatmates. I spent a lot of time with my family. I loved my course mates. A lot of the subject I was doing at uni was so much fun. It was so much fun. It was everything I wanted to do since I was a child. And I was like, girly, like, literally living the life. And then when things started to get a little bit interesting, because, like, as I started to go through 2020 was a very illuminating year for me. I am one of those people that I feel like, at least this is my experience, and I'm going to talk about my experience. Please don't generalize it. Everyone is different. Being Asian, I am Asian, context. Being Asian, I haven't been taught to talk about my emotions. I've been taught to kind of bury it under the carpet and just, let it go. Like, let it go. You can't let go of things if you don't process them. And because everyone I knew, my grandparents, and all love to them, by the way, I think this is the case because this is what they knew, and they learned that from their parents and grandparents. So honestly, I'm not, like, criticizing them in any way, but watching, like, the fact that my grandparents and my dad and everyone, like, don't speak, like, no one in my family speaks about their emotions. I just didn't know that, well, how to speak about them and communicate them and all of that stuff. So I spent my entire life until 2020, just, like, as things go through, I would just focus on, like, the next thing, my goal. And there was always something I was focusing on, and there was always something that was consuming me. And this is a topic that I'm going to dive into in a bit of time. But there was always something consuming me. So I was like, okay, you know what? There's so much stuff under the carpet. But, like, I am staring at that painting where I keep on adding, like, different layers because this is, like, my life's goal or, like, my life's master plan. So, yeah, kind of. Does that make any sense whatsoever? And in 2020, in lockdown, I found myself living in a 4-bedroom flat on my own. And there was this thing that happened where I locked myself out with my groceries. I also bought ice cream, so that kind of foreshadowing. And I don't know, it was like the drop of water that just sent me through. Had to sleep at my friend Laura's and then get the keys the next day. It was a whole hassle. And the second I got into that flat, I started bawling. It was like, how old was I at that point? 21? It was like 21 years of emotions just got out of my system. Like, I cried for a day. Like, I couldn't stop myself. I just cried. Like, so many emotions came out. And this is when I think let's be honest, this is when I've become so much more emotionally aware. And are we, 4 years later? 4 years later, I can look back and be like, oh my God, that was such a turning point in my life. And I can see, like, how different the person I was before that day and after that day. Like, it's so drastic, the difference. So it was a little bit harder to go through, like, 2020 pictures, because, like, as you go through them, you start to relive these memories, and you're like, oh my god. And I also dyed my hair colour because I was going through an existential crisis because I had a falling out with one of my best friends. Also, me and him have had like 50 falling outs, and we're still like so strong. We do have a really strong relationship and a really strong foundation, but that was kind of funny. I got so angry and we had such a massive falling out. I dyed my hair, guys. But again, going through 2020, like, it was tough. It was really tough. But there's so many pictures which were so many moments of quiet joy. It was like spending time with my dog, and there's certain pictures that bring me so much joy. Having a nap in my dad's bed, watching F1 with my grandparents, reading with my grandpa, getting there's this restaurant I always wanted to try, finally trying that restaurant, going to dinner with dad. And like my grandma waking up from a nap telling me she made me samosas, cheese samosas actually, because that's my favorite thing. And the more I went through, I was like, girlie, I actually like had such a, like, it was a tough year, but still there were so many moments of quiet joy, and we kept going, and even though it became even harder and harder going through the years before I had that bit of an epiphany, because the more I went through the pictures, the more it brought back like how emotionally constipated I was. I was like, holy shit, like, holy shit. It's painful. It felt, at least as I was going through those pictures, it felt really painful to go through them, because I felt the pain I was in at that point, but I didn't realize I was in pain at that point. So yeah, all through, now, I can't speak. But what I wanted to say is, as I was skimming through the pictures as I was going, is the more I looked back, the more that gave me perspective onto my life. I also realized, like, June for me tends to be a year like bittersweet. A lot of like shit kind of happens in June, but at the same time, like, June for me has always felt like new beginnings. I don't know how to explain it, but like over the past 6 years I've lived in the UK, and I've cleaned about like 6 years worth of pictures. It takes me like 3 working days, 3 business days to get through a year, by the way. That's how many pictures there are. June has always been this really weird turning point in my life. And like, I was like, what? Like, how... is it something with the season? Is it something with the timing? That was one of the things I realized. But the second thing I also realized is it's very normal to let like a lot of your emotions not cloud your judgment, but when you're feeling really strong emotions, you tend to focus on those emotions, and a lot of the time we humans tend to focus on a lot of the bad emotions, because we remember the bad stuff more than we remember the good stuff, unless it's like your ex, because then you start to romanticize your ex and you only remember the good stuff. But the more I was looking back, I was like, first of all, okay, like, whiny Mansi, we get it, it's been a little bit harder to be happy for the past 6 months in your life, but like, actually, there's been so many moments of quiet joy in the past 6 months, and so many like really, really incredible things have happened to you in the past 6 months. You've gotten so much. And as I was telling this to my physio recently, injuring myself on running a half marathon wasn't on my bingo card, and to be fair, I had it coming. I really had it coming. I was a little bit unhinged there, but anyway. But injuring my knee and not being able to work out got me something I really wanted earlier this year. It got me someone who knows the science. Having a physio design you a gym plan based on your body and based on like the activities you do to make sure you can sustain them for the like next 100 years of your life is something I really, really, really wanted. Well, not necessarily a physio. I would have settled for a PT, but that kind of somehow happened. And what did it cost me? Like, it did cost me an injury. But when I look back to it, I'm like, you know what? I'd go through the pain of enduring myself and going through that again, because somehow the universe gave me exactly what I wanted. And I was going back through looking at being so unhappy during my masters, because that's all I can remember between September 2021 and September 2022. But at the same time, within the 3 years of that, like 3 years, what nonsense am I speaking? Between the first 3 months, what I want to say, sorry. Like, within the first 3 months of me doing my masters, I got the dream job. I literally got the dream job, which, like, I could, at that point I was like, yeah, you know, I'm doing a masters, blah, blah, blah. But I know what's coming next, so I wasn't stressed. And because I wasn't stressed about what was coming next compared to a lot of my friends and stuff, I actually had, like, emotional space to enjoy my life. And even though I was still a bit unhappy, just having that little bit of space to enjoy what was going on was, like, so bloody brilliant. Like, there's so many things. Okay, maybe I'm just being superstitious and unhinged, but I now understand why the universe was putting me through, like, that masters, because there's so many things that needed to happen in that year. And if I was not doing that masters, then a lot of those things would not have happened. I would not have met my ex-boyfriend, because, context, I met him because, that's a little backstory there. And when I was doing my masters, I met this girl, Jo. Love her, Queen Jo. And I think we hit it off on, like, the first day of doing our masters. And she was really good friends with a girl named Marissa, who's also a TikTok influencer. And at that point in my life, I was still watching F1 because Sebastian Vettel was still an F1 athlete. And Jo introduced me to Marissa. She's like, Mansi, you need to talk to Marissa because she loves F1 too. And then we bonded over that. And then she had, like, Drive to Survive session at her house where we binge watched the season, and then she was like, oh, by the way, every Sunday we go watch F1, you should come. And those Sundays, those really quiet Sundays, were, like, the thing I would look forward to every single week, because it was the one moment where I would not have to be around, like, the toxic stuff that was going on in my flat. Like, my flat at that point in time. It was like a break from it. And one time, so Marissa was studying publishing, and so was a girl named Chris. And Chris was friends with my ex-boyfriend, because they went to high school together. And then that's how we met, and also nothing happened. We just, like, he just followed me on Instagram, and then I followed him back. And then we realized we had a lot, like, in common, and we were friends for, like, the longest time. But when I think of it, like, if I wasn't doing this exact masters, I would not have met him. And, like, we are not together in any way, shape, or form, but if we didn't break up, there's so many things that would not have happened in my life. So when I look back and I'm like, hello, it's like someone master planning my life above. And the further, like, I was zooming out, it felt like everything kind of had a purpose. Like, 2020 had a purpose. And 2020 is not a year I look back to fondly. And also, it gave me, like, this it's not really a quiet realization, but it gave me this realization that there's so many things I wanted, and there's so many, like, let's say there was 100 things I wanted. I got 250 things. And certain of the things that was in that 100 list, they came to me in the most, like, twisted ways as well. And I also think, like, a lot of those things come with the price to pay. And when I look back to it, I would have paid the price over and over again. Because I want to finish on the note of something super. I want to finish on this note. Because I know my one listener will really appreciate this. I hated that masters with everything in me. A lot of the time when people ask me whether they should do a masters, I was like, listen, when I did my masters, I thought I wasn't happy. It was pointless, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, if I actually got the dream job the year I would have wanted, the year I wanted that job, I would not have met my best friend Edward, because one of the reasons we met was because we were part of the same cohort, which meant our cohort would have lunch together. And him and I, like, it's not like it was best friend at first sight. Let's be honest there, Eddie. Am I wrong? Am I actually wrong? We ended up working on the same project that I would not have been working on if I joined the company any earlier. And then we became really good friends. And then at some point, I was like starting to run. And I jokingly asked him whether he wanted to join me to run because my AirPods got stolen. And then we went on our first run together, and it was really emotional. And I made him an Instagram reel that was really close to making him cry. And that was the beginning of our, like, friendship. There's so many people that I would not be that connected with if I joined that company a year earlier. And it made me realize that absolutely everything falls into place, which is a notion that I kind of forgot, because I've been so hardwired around, like, there's this one thing I want in my life and I don't have it right now, that I actually forgot, like, all the other things that I still have in my life, and that everything I've ever wanted, I have gotten it in some way, shape or form, maybe not in the way that I was expecting it to. And I need to let go of that thought that I know better than God or the universe. Because, let's be honest, I bloody don't. And yeah, it was kind of nice to zoom out of 6 years of my life and look at the person I used to be through that time. Look at all the lessons I've learned. And be reminded of that I've had a really, really good life so far. And it has somehow always worked out. When I was going through, like, a tough patch, somehow the universe and God just, like, gave me what I needed in that moment to go through that time. So yeah, I feel absolutely bloody blessed. So anyway, thank you for having me in your ears, and thank you for listening. Edward, my one listener, thank you so much. I love you. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and I don't know, leave a comment down below. Don't know how that works. I'm still figuring it out. And I can't wait to speak to you guys soon when I'm sleep deprived again. Bye, guys.